3 days after my father's funeral, I returned to his house to sort through his belongings. My daughter kept urging me to donate everything quickly, especially a fishing tackle box she called worthless trash. But her urgency made me pause. I opened it one more time and I froze when I saw what was hidden carefully inside a savings passbook and his final message. The next day, I took it to the bank to verify, and that's when I realized my father had been trying to protect me until his last breath. Hello everyone, welcome to our story. Before we begin, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. I want to be upfront. This story contains fictionalized elements crafted for entertainment and educational purposes. Any resemblance to actual names or settings is purely coincidental, but the lessons I'm sharing may help protect someone you love. The vintage brown leather creel sat in the corner of Dad's bedroom at 847 Riverside Lane, half buried under his old flannel jacket. I'd walked past it a dozen times that afternoon, barely registering its presence among the condolence casseroles and hushed conversations. But Audrey noticed it. She always noticed things she could assess for value or dismiss as worthless. Her heels clicked against the hardwood as she moved through the modest ranch house, nodding at guests accepting murmured sympathies with polished performance. I watched her scan the bookshelves. The mantel, the side tables cluttered with decades of accumulated life. Dad's reading glasses framed photos of Mom before the cancer took her in 2006. Audrey's eyes cataloged everything like she was already dividing assets. When she spotted the creel, her face twisted with disgust. God, that old thing, it's probably crawling with mold. Should have been tossed years ago. Carl Winters, one of Dad's Thursday fishing buddies, stood near the window. 79, lean and weathered, he'd been watching Audrey with quiet intensity. When our eyes met, something passed between us, an understanding neither of us could name yet. He moved closer, speaking low. Your old man was the most patient soul I ever knew, Owen. Used to say good things come to those who wait. Carl's gaze drifted to the creel. He also said some folks can't wait. They want it all, now consequences be damned. Audrey's voice cut through the room. Grandpa lived simply. There's really nothing left. Just the house and maybe a small pension. I wish he'd let me help him more with his finances. I offered so many times. That was the first lie I caught her in that day. When the house emptied, I found Audrey heading toward the trash bins with the creel. Where are you taking that? She startled. Just cleaning up. This thing is ancient. You don't want this. Something in her tone and how her fingers gripped the worn leather too tightly made my stomach clench. It was his. I'm keeping it. Her eyes flashed with anger before she smoothed her expression. Of course. Whatever you want. She set it down with trembling hands. Back at my apartment in Millbrook, I examined the creel. The brass clasp read FMB 1967. Frederick Michael Barrett. Inside were rusted fishing licenses dating to 1972, tangled line cork bobbers, hand-tied flies. But the weight felt wrong. I ran my fingers along the bottom until something clicked a false bottom. Underneath lay items that didn't belong: a passbook from Pinehurst Credit Union, a micro SD card, a tri-folded document dated May 15, 2024, and a 3-page letter in Dad's careful printing. Oh, and if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and Audrey has shown her real self. I'm sorry, son. I couldn't read more. Not yet. I grabbed the passbook and drove to Pinehurst, 30 miles southeast. The credit union was housed in a converted brick storefront. Inside, I asked for Dennis Crawford. Minutes later, he emerged, mid-50s, thinning hair, wire-rimmed glasses. His palm was damp when we shook hands. I found this in my father's belongings. I placed the passbook on the counter. He passed away on the 13th. I'm trying to understand his accounts. Crawford's face paled. Would you mind stepping into my office? This requires privacy. He pulled up the account and printed a summary. The final line made my vision blur. Current balance $2,350,000. There must be some mistake, I whispered. Crawford shook his head. No mistake. Your father built this over decades: retirement distributions, investment returns, property sales. He was extremely disciplined and extremely private. He withdrew a sealed manila envelope with my name in Dad's handwriting underlined twice. Below, urgent. He left this 6 months ago. Said if anything happened, I was to give it to you when you came asking questions. He was certain you'd come. The account is protected by specific protocols, Crawford continued. No one else can access it. No power of attorney, nothing short of a court order. He made sure of that. Why, he came in last March, updated everything. He looked tired, Owen, sad, but determined. He said, if anything happens before I can fix this, my son will figure it out. He's smarter than he thinks, and he's got more courage than he knows. My phone buzzed. A text from Audrey. Hey Dad, have you gone through Grandpa's paperwork? Yet I can come help this weekend. We should make sure everything's in order. Something cold settled in my stomach. In my car, I opened the envelope. Inside were account statements, legal papers, a USB drive labeled evidence, and a handwritten page. Owen, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And Audrey has shown her true colors. She's been stealing from me for years, and I have proof. But there's something worse, something that happened to Beatrice Sullivan. Trust no one in the family except you. No one. I'm sorry to leave you with this burden, but I know you'll do what's right. You always do. I love you. Choose carefully, son. Some decisions can't be undone. Dad. I read it 3 times before my hands started shaking. Beatrice Sullivan. Dad's friend from the senior center who'd passed away 3 years ago. Natural causes, everyone said. Heart failure at 79. But Dad was telling me something different. And the way Audrey had tried to throw away this creel, the way she'd asked about paperwork, the way her hands had trembled suddenly, none of that felt coincidental. I started the car and drove back toward Millbrook. Dad's final words echoing, trust no one. She's been stealing. Something worse. Beatrice Sullivan. The funeral had been 2 days ago. The investigation was about to begin. My apartment felt smaller than usual when I spread everything from the creel across my kitchen table. The overhead light buzzed faintly, casting harsh shadows across the documents, the journal, the micro SD card beside my laptop. Outside, Millbrook had gone quiet past midnight now, just me and the weight of what I was about to learn. The coffee I'd made an hour ago sat untouched in the mug Dad had given me years back. World's okayest son, in faded letters. He'd laughed when he handed it to me. Now that mug felt like an accusation. The USB drive labeled evidence in Dad's precise handwriting sat in the card reader blinking green. Waiting. Once I opened these files, there'd be no going back. No pretending I'd never found the creel. No letting Audrey have her inheritance while I quietly moved on. I could almost hear Dad's voice from 5 years ago after Mom died. The hard thing and the right thing are usually the same thing, Owen. That's how you know it matters. I double-clicked the folder. 47 video files appeared, each labeled with dates. April 1st through April 13th. 2 weeks of footage. A separate folder labeled Financial Records contained spreadsheets. Unauthorized withdrawals 2019 to 2024, and Beatrice S. documentation. I opened the journal first. 47 pages of Dad's steady handwriting in blue pen. March 15th, 2023. Audrey visited today. Asked about POA again, wants to help manage my accounts. I told her no. She got angry, then quickly apologetic. The pattern is becoming clear. May 22nd, 2023. Checked my savings account. Another withdrawal, $12,000. Check signed in my name, but I never wrote it. Audrey's been forging my signature. November 8th, 2023. Since 2019, approximately $392,000 has disappeared from my accounts. All of it matches Audrey's business emergencies. She calls it caregiving. I call it theft. I had to stop reading. My hands shook. $392,000 stolen over 5 years while she smiled and played the devoted granddaughter. The spreadsheet confirmed everything in brutal detail. Columns of theft categorized by date, method, and amount. Forged checks. Stolen passwords. ATM withdrawals. Each entry cross-referenced with deposits to Audrey's gallery account. Dad had included Audrey's Atelier financial statements from 2019 to 2024, showing mounting losses $404,000 total. The stolen money had kept her failing business afloat. Not for medical bills, not for emergencies, for her vanity project. I opened the Beatrice Sullivan folder. Withdrawals from Beatrice's accounts totaling $155,000 between March 2020 and October 2021. A timeline showing Audrey's involvement, volunteer work at the senior center, frequent visits becoming Beatrice's primary companion. A copy of Beatrice's will from 2018, leaving everything to her sister Iris. And a second will from June 2021, leaving everything to Audrey Barrett. Beatrice died in October 2021, 3 months after changing her will. My daughter had done this. Not once, but twice. 2 elderly people, 2 manipulated wills, 2 convenient deaths. I clicked on the first video file dated April 13, 2024. Timestamp 8:47 p.m. The angle looked down into Dad's living room from the bookshelf. I could see his recliner, the TV playing baseball, the side table with his phone, and Dad himself wearing his blue flannel shirt looking thinner but alert. Audrey entered carrying water and a pill organizer. "Grandpa, time for your medication." Dad looked up confused. "I took it this morning, honey." "No, you're confused." Her voice was gentle, patient. "Dr. Pierce said twice daily now, remember?" "I don't recall her saying that. I've always taken it once in the morning." "Grandpa, your blood pressure has been high. She adjusted your dosage." "I'm not confused, Audrey. I know what I... Just take them." Her voice had an edge now. "Please, for me. I worry about you." Dad hesitated, then reluctantly took the pills and swallowed them. Audrey watched closely, too closely, making sure he swallowed. "Good. I'll be downstairs. Call if you need anything." She left the frame. The camera caught her face as she walked away. No concern, no worry, just cold calculation. Dad sat alone. The TV droned on. He shifted uncomfortably, his hand moving to his chest. Then he reached for the phone. His hand was shaking, not with age, with something else. The phone slipped from his fingers, clattered to the floor. He tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't hold him. He fell back, breathing hard, his face contorted with fear. The timestamp kept counting. 8:51 p.m., 8:55, 9:00, 9:05. Frederick Barrett alone trying to reach a phone he couldn't get to, struggling with symptoms he didn't understand. 9:29 p.m. Audrey re-entered, moving quickly, her face arranged into perfect alarm. "Grandpa, Grandpa, can you hear me?" She pulled out her phone, dialed. "My grandfather isn't breathing. I need help. Please, 847 Riverside Lane. He's not responding." I stopped the video. Sat there understanding that everything I thought I knew was a lie. The medical examiner had ruled it natural causes. Cardiac arrest in an 83-year-old man with heart disease. No autopsy, no investigation. But I just watched my daughter give him medication he didn't need, then disappear for 38 minutes while he died. I'd watched her perform grief for the 911 operator with practiced skill. The journal entry for April 12th, the day before Dad died, was the last thing he wrote. "Tomorrow, I'm meeting with Raymond Cooper to remove Audrey from my will completely. If something happens to me before that meeting, you'll know why." She knows about the appointment. "Be brave, Owen. Choose what's right over what's easy. I love you, Dad." The appointment had been scheduled for 2 p.m. on April 14th. Dad died the night of April 13th. Audrey had a 24-hour window to act, and she'd taken it. Clipped to the journal was Beatrice Sullivan's will from July 2021, leaving her $155,000 estate to Audrey Barrett. Below it, a death certificate from October 14, 2021. Cause, cardiac arrest. Natural causes. At the bottom, 2 witness signatures. One I didn't recognize. The other in Audrey's distinctive handwriting, Audrey M. Barrett. She'd witnessed the will of a woman she would inherit from. A woman who died 3 months later. A woman whose death looked exactly like Frederick's. My phone buzzed. A text from Audrey can't sleep. Keep thinking about Grandpa. Miss him so much. Love you, Dad. I stared at those words until they stopped making sense. Then I opened my contacts and scrolled to Riverside Police Department non-emergency line. But it was 1:00 a.m., and whatever I was about to set in motion needed daylight and clarity and the courage Dad had asked me to have. So instead, I closed the laptop, gathered the evidence, and sat in the dark, trying to remember when my daughter had become someone capable of this. The answer was that she'd always been capable of it. I just hadn't wanted to see. Sleep wasn't happening. Every time my eyes closed, I saw Dad's hand trembling as he reached for that phone, saw Audrey's face when she walked away, empty, clinical. Like she was checking the oven instead of leaving an old man to die. By 2 a.m, I'd pulled out boxes of old photographs from Dad's house, searching for proof I was wrong. The first photo was Father's Day, 1997. Audrey at 5, all pigtails and missing teeth, holding up a construction paper fish she'd painted. Dad's handwriting on the back, Audrey's masterpiece, 3 hours at the kitchen table. Worth every minute. That kid had been real, sweet, thoughtful. So where did she go? More photos spilled across my coffee table. Audrey at 7 on Dad's fishing boat. Audrey at 9 holding Dad's hand at Mom's funeral. Audrey at 11 with her science fair volcano, both of them covered in papier-mâché paste and laughing. Then Christmas 2007. Audrey at 13 standing apart from us, arms crossed. Monica had left me for Trevor Hayes 3 months earlier, and Audrey had spent the holiday comparing my modest salary to Trevor's real estate empire. Dad had written on the back, "She's at a crossroads. Love her through it." I found my journal from April 2010. Audrey turned 16 tomorrow. Monica showed up in a brand new Mercedes designer clothes talking about Trevor's yacht club. Audrey barely spoke to me. She kept staring at her mother, like Monica had discovered the secret to everything I'd failed to provide. Her college years had been a string of requests, tuition help, rent money, emergency car repairs. Dad had helped her too, or so I'd thought. Now I knew that help had been theft. The 2018 photo showed Audrey at the grand opening of Audrey's atelier. Monica and Trevor stood front and center. Dad and I were barely in frame holding paper plates while everyone else networked. I should have seen it then. The way Audrey always angled toward money and status, always measuring her worth by what she could accumulate. I forced myself to finish Dad's journal entries. December 2019. Audrey asked to be added to my checking account. Said Owen is too busy to help with bills. I declined. She seemed upset, but I saw her face when I said no. There was anger there. Real anger. I need to start documenting this. March 2020. Beatrice Sullivan introduced me to Audrey at the senior center. Audrey was wonderful with her attentive warmth. Beatrice was so pleased. She has no family nearby. I hope they become good friends. I had to stop reading. Dad had introduced them. He'd helped Audrey identify her next target. August 2020. Audrey visits more frequently. She asks about my finances, my pension investments, the house. She says she's worried about my future. But her questions are too specific. I'm starting to understand what she's really asking. How much do you have and how can I get it? November 2022. Dr. Pierce confirmed I'm in excellent health, but Audrey insists I need cognitive testing. Says she's noticed memory problems. I took the test to prove her wrong. Results came back completely normal. When I showed her, she looked disappointed. The conservatorship paperwork was clipped to that entry. January 2023, Audrey had petitioned the court to declare Dad incompetent. Dr. Pierce's evaluation destroyed it. Patient demonstrates sharp cognitive function. There is no medical basis for conservatorship. Recommendation: deny petition. Dad's note stapled to the documents made my hands shake. She tried to take control legally. When that failed, she found another way. I need to be more careful. She's getting desperate. I'd known about the conservatorship attempt. Audrey had called me crying, saying she'd only been trying to protect Grandpa, and I'd believed her. Taken her side against my own father's doctor. The memory made me sick. The next photo stopped me cold. June 2021 at the Riverside Community Center picnic. Dad, Beatrice Sullivan, and Audrey between them with her arms around both shoulders. Beatrice was tiny in a floral dress, her face lit with happiness. Audrey looked like a model granddaughter. Dad's handwriting on the back was pressed hard into the paper. Beatrice changed her will last week, leaving everything to Audrey. They've known each other less than 18 months. Something is wrong. I can feel it. Paper clipped behind was Beatrice's death certificate. October 14th, 2021. Cardiac arrest. Natural causes. 3 months after changing her will, the pattern hit me like a physical blow. Befriend vulnerable elderly people with assets. Build their trust. Convince them to change their wills. Then give nature a little help the way she'd helped Dad with medication he'd already taken. She'd done this to a stranger, then to her own grandfather. My phone sat on the coffee table, Instagram open. Audrey's posts from April 14th, the day Dad died, showed artistic black and white photos, tears streaming down her face, heartbroken. Grandpa was my world. I'd give anything for one more fishing trip. She'd posted it 6 hours after he died. 6 hours. While I was at the funeral home, she was staging grief photos with perfect lighting. Dawn was breaking when I made the decision. I scrolled to a name I'd been avoiding: Iris Sullivan. We'd met once at Beatrice's funeral. Audrey had introduced us, playing devoted family friend. Iris had seemed confused about the will, but too devastated to fight it. 3 years later, I understood what that must have cost her. I typed, "Ms. Sullivan, this is Owen Barrett. I'm Audrey Barrett's father. I need to talk to you about your sister, Beatrice. I think my daughter may have done something terrible, and I think my father figured it out." I hit send. Almost immediately, 3 dots appeared. The response. I've been waiting 3 years for someone to ask the right questions. When can we meet? The drive to Riverside took 40 minutes, but I barely noticed the traffic. All I could think about was Beatrice Sullivan's death certificate, October 14th, 2021, cardiac arrest, natural causes. The same words on Dad's certificate. Same cause, same method, same person at the center. Iris had suggested the Riverside Diner. She was already there when I walked in, 74, silver hair, pulled back, wearing a navy cardigan. A manila folder sat on the table before her. When our eyes met, something passed between us, the understanding that we were about to share a burden neither of us wanted, but both needed. "You have your father's eyes," she said. "Frederick was a good man. He tried to warn Bea about your daughter. She wouldn't listen." My stomach dropped. "Warn her about what?" Iris opened the folder, laying out documents with precision. "I'm going to tell you what happened to my sister. Then you're going to tell me what happened to your father. And we're going to figure out what to do about the person who connects them." The first photo showed Beatrice and Audrey at a community center art class, both holding paintbrushes, both looking happy. March 2020. Audrey started volunteering at the Riverside Community Center. Very charming with seniors. B had just lost her closest friend. She was lonely, vulnerable. Audrey swooped right in. More photos followed, Audrey helping Beatrice with her coat. Having lunch together. At Beatrice's house on Maple Street. By June, Audrey was visiting 3 times a week, bringing groceries, running errands. I lived 3 hours away, had my own family. I thought Audrey was doing what I couldn't. The next document was a bank statement from September 2020. A check for $15,000 made out to Audrey Barrett. Memo: gallery support. TDB called me that week. Said Audrey's business needed a short-term loan. I asked about a promissory note. B said Audrey was family, and family didn't need paperwork. More statements followed. December 2020, 20,000. March 2021, 18,000. June 2021, 25,000. Total over 18 months, $155,000. Every penny B had saved from 40 years teaching elementary school. I stared at the numbers, seeing Dad's spreadsheet overlaid on them. Same pattern. Same escalation. The will change happened in June 2021. Iris showed me both versions, the 2018 will leaving everything to Iris and the animal shelter, and the 2021 version leaving everything to Audrey Barrett. 2 witnesses required. One name I didn't recognize. The other made my blood run cold, Monica Walsh. Your ex-wife, Iris said. She came with Audrey to witness the signing. Very professional, very polished. Monica had been involved 3 years ago. Monica had witnessed a will that cut out the legitimate heir. After B signed, Audrey became even more attentive. But she was also cutting me off. Every time I called, Audrey answered. Beatrice is resting. She's not feeling well. The Thursday card games stopped. B's other friends stopped hearing from her. Oh, Frederick noticed, I said quietly. He did. Came to me in July, said something felt wrong. Said Audrey was isolating B, controlling who she saw. He even went to B's house unannounced. Found Audrey managing B's medications, writing out checks from B's checkbook. The medication detail hit me hard. Frederick documented that Iris pulled out a photocopy of Dad's earlier journal entries. August 2021. Visited Beatrice today. Audrey Barrett is managing her medications, her finances, her daily schedule. This is elder isolation. Beatrice is competent and alert, but Audrey is creating dependence. Need to talk to Iris. He'd tried to warn her. He'd seen it happening. See, I confronted Audrey. She cried. Said she loved B like family, said she'd never take advantage. And I believed her. Iris pulled out hospital records from October 2021. Beatrice had fallen, broken her hip, needed surgery. Successful procedure, released home October 13th, with instructions for physical therapy. I drove up the day she fell. Visited her every day in the hospital. We talked about her coming to live with me. She seemed happy about that. Iris's hands shook. October 13th, B came home. Audrey insisted on being primary caregiver. Said she had medical training she didn't, and that B would be more comfortable in her own house. October 14th, I arrived at 9 in the morning. Audrey said B had a rough night, was finally sleeping. I waited 3 hours. Finally, I went upstairs anyway. Her voice broke. B was in bed, not breathing, cold to the touch. Had been gone for hours. Audrey called 911, did the whole hysterical performance. Doctor said cardiac arrest, not unexpected given her age. I'd heard that 911 call. Different victim, identical script. While Frederick came to the funeral. Said something isn't right. That girl waited too long to call for help. 2 weeks later, he installed cameras in his house. I tried to contest the will, Iris said. My lawyer said it was airtight. But look at this. She placed 2 documents side by side, Beatrice's signatures from both wills. The earlier signature was strong, confident. The later signature was shaky, cramped, uncertain, like someone had signed while medicated or under duress. Frederick saw it too. He said, "Your sister was either sick or scared when she signed that." I couldn't prove it. Until you called. "My father left evidence," I said. "Video footage, financial records, everything. I need to take this to the police, but I need your help. Your testimony proof this was a pattern." Iris didn't hesitate. "I've been waiting 3 years. Take everything. I'll testify. I'll do whatever it takes." We exchanged information. Iris gripped my hand with surprising strength. "Frederick tried to save my sister. I couldn't help him then. But I can help you now. One more thing," Iris said. "About a month before B died, she mentioned a new life insurance policy Audrey helped her set up. $50,000. I never saw that money. The insurance company said there was no policy in Bay's name. Back in my car, I tore through the envelope from Dad's creel. At the very bottom was a premium notice from AmeriLife Mutual Insurance dated December 2023. Policy amount $550,000. Insured Frederick Barrett. Beneficiary Audrey Barrett. Stapled to it a note in Dad's printing. "I never agreed to this. Check my signature, it's not my handwriting. She forged it. This is how she planned to profit from my death. F.B. The morning after discovering the creel, I woke with a decision already formed. The savings passbook sat on my kitchen table, its faded cover marked with Pinehurst Credit Union's logo and an account number I'd never seen during the year I'd helped Frederick manage his bills. The deliberate concealment suggested something significant. Pinehurst Credit Union occupied a brick building on Riverside's east side, a community institution serving the area for decades. I arrived 15 minutes before opening the passbook, heavy in my jacket pocket. When the doors opened, I approached the manager's desk, where Dennis Crawford, a man in his late 50s with graying temples, sat with the careful demeanor of someone who'd spent a career handling other people's money. "Mr. Crawford, I need to verify an account. My father passed away recently, and I found this passbook among his belongings." I set it on his desk. "Frederick Barrett." Crawford opened the passbook, and his entire posture changed. His eyes widened, his hand reached for his computer mouse with sudden urgency. The color drained from his face as he read his monitor. "Mr. Barrett, don't move. This account has protection flags. Your father filed an elder abuse report 6 months ago. He specifically requested that if anyone other than you inquired about this account, we contact authorities immediately. 6 months ago, October 2023. Frederick had known something was wrong half a year before he died," Crawford continued. "He came to see me personally, said someone in his family was stealing from him. He moved assets into this protected account and left instructions that only you could access it. He also left a note." Crawford pulled a sealed envelope from a file. My hands shook as I opened it. Frederick's handwriting careful and measured. "Owen, if Crawford is reading this to you, I'm gone. The account holds $2,350,000, everything I saved that Audrey couldn't reach. She doesn't know about it. If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it to my appointment with Raymond Cooper to finalize protection. I need you to call Detective Catherine Reeves at Riverside Police. Tell her I didn't die naturally. Tell her to look at Beatrice Sullivan's death from 2021. The pattern is there. I'm sorry to put this burden on you, but you're the only one I can rely on to do what's right. Love, Dad." Crawford was already dialing. "Detective Reeves, Dennis Crawford at Pinehurst Credit Union. I have Owen Barrett in my office. His father, Frederick, filed a protection order last October and passed away 2 weeks ago. The flag's just activated. You need to come down here immediately." 20 minutes later, Detective Catherine Reeves walked through the entrance. She was in her early 40s, navy pantsuit, dark hair pulled back, carrying herself with calm authority. In a private conference room, she studied Frederick's file methodically before looking at me. "Mr. Barrett, your father believed his life was in danger. He took steps to protect evidence and assets. I need to know if you're willing to cooperate fully with an investigation, understanding that it may lead to someone you love." I thought about Audrey's urgency about settling the estate, the way she'd dismissed the Creel as worthless junk. I thought about Frederick living his final months in fear of his own granddaughter. "My father asked me to find the truth. I'm going to honor that request." "Then I need you to show me everything you found." We drove to my apartment. Reeves examined each item with forensic attention. She called in a tech specialist who loaded the video files onto a laptop, and together we watched April 13th unfold on screen. Frederick in his recliner television playing baseball. Audrey entering at 8:47 with a pill bottle. Their conversation barely audible, but the body language clear, Frederick indicating he'd already taken medication. Audrey insisting, Frederick reluctantly complying. Audrey leaving. Frederick watching television. 8:55, his hand moving to his chest. 9:03, reaching for the phone but unable to grasp it. 9:17, collapsing partially from the chair. 9:29. Audrey returning with perfect panic in her voice as she called 911. 38 minutes between administration and emergency call. Reeves paused the video. What medication was he prescribed? I provided his medical records. She cross-referenced them carefully. Once daily morning dose of blood pressure medication. A second dose in the evening, especially with his cardiac history, could cause severe hypotension leading to cardiac arrest. This isn't definitive proof of intent, but combined with the financial evidence and the pattern your father mentioned with Beatrice Sullivan, it's substantial. She began assembling a case structure. We need to move carefully. Your father's death certificate says natural causes. Changing that requires exhumation and toxicology, which needs a court order and takes weeks. The financial crimes need forensic accountants and subpoenas. This is a 2-week minimum operation before we can make arrests. 2 weeks, what am I supposed to do during that time? You maintain normal contact with your daughter. You act like a grieving son handling your father's estate. You give her absolutely no indication that we're building a case. If she suspects investigation, she lawyers up immediately. Maybe destroys evidence. We lose everything your father worked to document. You want me to have dinner with her? Pretend everything's fine while knowing what she did? Your father trusted you enough to leave you this evidence. He knew you'd do what needed to be done no matter how hard. My phone buzzed. Text from Audrey. Dad, can we have dinner Friday? I really need family right now. Miss Grandpa so much. Reeves watched me. This is your first test. My hands shook, typing, of course, sweetheart. Riverside Bistro, 7 p.m. Perfect. Love you, Dad. Evening had fallen when I left the police station. I sat in my car staring at Audrey's text, the weight of what I'd set in motion pressing down. 4 days until that dinner. 4 days to prepare myself to sit across from my daughter, knowing I'd just handed police video evidence of her letting Frederick die. The parking lot behind Riverside Bistro held maybe 8 cars when Owen arrived shortly before 7. Through the tall windows, he could see Audrey already seated at a corner table backlit by amber Edison bulbs wearing black that read as "Morning" to anyone watching. Detective Reeves had been clear during their preparation session act. Normal, don't confront, let her talk. His role tonight was simple in concept, but brutal in execution, grieving father, grateful for his daughter's company. The fact that he'd spent 72 hours watching video of her, withholding help from his dying father, made every breath feel like swallowing glass. Audrey rose immediately when he entered her embrace, seemingly genuine. Her eyes wet with tears that caught the candlelight perfectly. Dad, I'm so glad you came. I've been feeling so alone. They sat, and she reached across the table, taking his hand. I keep thinking he's going to call. Like any minute the phone's going to ring and it'll be Grandpa. Yeah, I know what you mean. Owen managed. I talked to Raymond Cooper this morning. Audrey continued, her thumb maintaining its rhythmic pattern against his palm. He mentioned you haven't scheduled a meeting yet about the estate. Dad, we need to start going through Grandpa's accounts. There are bills piling up, utilities, credit cards, property taxes coming due. Less than 3 minutes into dinner, and she'd pivoted to money. Raymond mentioned something about that. I'm supposed to meet with him next week. Audrey's grip tightened slightly. Did Grandpa ever talk to you about his finances, like specifically where he kept things, bank accounts, investment statements, safety deposit boxes? Not really. He wasn't big on sharing financial details. Her smile flickered, quickly repaired. It's just that I was going through papers at the house and I found statements from banks I've never heard of. Accounts I didn't know existed. The server returned before Owen had to respond, setting down plates Audrey must have pre-selected. She cut into her chicken with precise movements, staying busy while fishing for information. The gallery's been really rough lately, she said after a calculated pause. We're behind on rent. 3 months now. The landlord's threatening eviction. She looked up, eyes bright. I know Grandpa helped me before and I feel terrible bringing this up now. But if there's anything in his estate, even a small amount to bridge the gap, it would save everything I've built. Owen's stomach turned, thinking of the spreadsheet documenting $392,000 stolen through forged checks and unauthorized transfers. I'll talk to Raymond, see what's available. Then Carl Winters walked in with his son Brian. Carl's gaze landed on Owen, and something passed between them. Recognition and unspoken understanding that Frederick's closest friend knew exactly what Owen was facing. Carl made his way across the dining room with deliberate purpose. Owen. Carl's hand landed on Owen's shoulder with the weight of decades of friendship. How are you holding up, son? Owen half rose, shaking Carl's hand. Getting by, day by day. Carl glanced at Audrey with a nod that was polite but notably cooler. Audrey. He turned his attention back to Owen, his expression hardening. I won't interrupt your dinner, but if you need anything at all, you call me. Your father was a good man. He'd want you to do right by him. You understand what I'm saying? He'd want you to make sure everything's handled properly. Owen felt the weight of those coded words. Carl knew about the evidence. Frederick had trusted his oldest friend. I will. I promise you I'll do exactly what he wanted. Carl held the eye contact a beat longer, then nodded with satisfaction and walked to a table across the room. Audrey's smile had dimmed considerably. She sipped her wine slowly, watching Owen with new wariness. You know, she said slowly, setting down her fork with deliberate care. Grandpa got really confused toward the end, with his medications especially. Sometimes he'd forget whether he'd taken them, and I'd have to step in and help manage everything. I'd make sure he took the right doses at the right times. Owen's pulse hammered in his ears, thinking of April 13th. The timestamp burned into his memory. Audrey entering Frederick's bedroom with a pill bottle. The 38 minutes that followed before she called for help. That was good of you, Owen managed. Taking care of him like that. Audrey leaned forward slightly. I loved him, Dad. Everything I did, every decision I made, I did it because I wanted him to be comfortable and happy in his final months. Even when it was really hard, even when the choices weren't easy. Not quite a confession, but close enough to make Owen's blood run cold. She was testing him, gauging whether he suspected anything beyond the surface narrative of natural causes and family grief. I know you did your best. Nobody could ask for more than that. Something in Audrey's posture relaxed. The remainder of the meal passed in small talk. She paid with a credit card Owen knew was maxed out and hugged him outside the embrace, lingering longer than necessary. So I thank you for coming tonight. I really needed this. Owen watched her drive off, taillights disappearing into the dark. His phone buzzed immediately. 2 texts from Detective Reeves. The first, exhumation order signed for Frederick Barrett, scheduled for day after tomorrow dawn. The second, Monica Walsh, just tried to access Beatrice Sullivan's estate records at county clerk's office. Owen leaned against his car. Somewhere across town, Audrey was probably calling Monica right now, comparing notes, discussing his reactions, strategizing about accessing Frederick's hidden assets. But they didn't know what was coming. They didn't know Frederick had spent his final months building a roadmap that would lead investigators directly to them. Owen typed back a single word, understood. Then he sat in the dark parking lot for a long time, thinking about how convincingly his daughter could lie, how easily she'd constructed a version of events where she was the devoted caregiver rather than the calculating predator, and how close she'd come to getting away with everything if Frederick hadn't been methodical enough, frightened enough, and ultimately brave enough to document his own case. Owen had forgotten what uninterrupted sleep felt like. 5 days since the dinner at Riverside Bistro, and his mind kept cycling through the same fragments, Audrey's carefully calibrated questions about Frederick's accounts, Monica's name appearing in Detective Reeves's text about accessing Beatrice Sullivan's estate records, the exhumation order waiting for final execution. But before any arrests could proceed, the financial architecture of the crimes needed documentation so thorough that no defense attorney could dismantle it. The conference room at Riverside Police Station smelled like burnt coffee and dry erase markers. Ethan Webb sat at the head of the long table, a forensic accountant in his early 50s with steel-rimmed glasses and the calm demeanor of someone who'd spent decades translating financial chaos into prosecutable patterns. Detective Reeves stood beside the whiteboard that Webb had transformed into a visual timeline spanning 2019 through April 2024, each suspicious transaction flagged with red marker. Webb began with the gallery, his voice matter-of-fact. Audrey's atelier opened in late 2018 with legitimate startup capital. First year showed modest profit, but starting in 2020, the gallery began hemorrhaging money at an accelerating rate. 2020, $47,000 in losses. 2021, $89,000. 2022, $103,000. 2023, $127,000. Through April of this year, another $38,000 deficit. Owen stared at the progression. $404,000 in cumulative losses over 5 years. Any legitimate business operating at that scale would have closed within 18 months. Yet the gallery had continued operating. But it didn't close. Webb continued. Because withdrawals from Frederick Barrett's accounts started appearing in 2019 and escalated in parallel with the gallery's losses. The totals aligned with nauseating precision. $392,000 stolen from Frederick. $404,000 lost by the gallery. She kept the gallery alive by stealing from my father, Owen said. Every exhibition was funded by Frederick's retirement savings. Webb explained how Audrey had positioned herself strategically, starting in 2019, presenting herself as Frederick's caregiver. By 2020, she'd secured limited financial power of attorney, a document that Monica Walsh had drafted. The POA gave Audrey authority to write checks for Frederick's care. Once she had that authority, Audrey started systematically inflating legitimate expenses. A prescription that cost $40 became a check for $400. Half these expenses were fabricated entirely. Reeves leaned forward. March 2023 represents the inflection point. Frederick revoked the power of attorney, completely transferred assets into a protected account at Pinehurst Credit Union, and left explicit instructions that only Owen could access those funds. Webb flipped to another section. So Audrey adapted. After losing legal authority, she started forging Frederick's signature on checks. Your father documented this extensively, photographing checks before they cleared. He scheduled a meeting with Raymond Cooper for April 14th, to finalize legal protection and potentially file criminal charges. He died 3 days before that appointment. Monica wasn't just aware of these activities, Webb said quietly. She was integral to enabling them. He spread out documents, the 2020 power of attorney bearing Monica's witness signature, the amended will for Beatrice Sullivan with Monica's notarization, loan applications using Frederick's home as collateral without his knowledge. Monica received $89,000 from Audrey between 2020 and 2024, structured as consulting fees. These payments weren't for legitimate services. They were compensation for her participation in the scheme. Webb shifted focus to Beatrice Sullivan, and the pattern repeated with eerie precision. March 2020, shortly after securing the POA with Frederick, Audrey had befriended the elderly woman who lived alone. Within weeks, small loans appeared in Beatrice's bank records. June 2021, Beatrice changed her will through Monica's legal services, naming Audrey as primary beneficiary. 3 days later, $35,000 moved from Beatrice's savings directly into the gallery's business account. October 2021, Beatrice Sullivan passed away at home. Total amount extracted $155,000. Carl Winters arrived before 3 o'clock, carrying a shoebox wrapped in twine. Fred gave me this back in March. Told me if anything happened to him, I should bring everything to Owen. Inside, photocopies of checks, photographs of financial documents, bank statements with Frederick's handwritten notes, and a small digital recorder. Reeves pressed play, and Frederick's voice filled the conference room. Carl, I need you to remember something important. If I go suddenly, if Audrey says it was natural, causes you tell Owen what really happened. She's been stealing from me for years. I've got an appointment with Raymond Cooper on April 14th to finalize protection. If I don't make that appointment, you'll understand why. Owen will handle it correctly. Tell him I'm sorry for putting this burden on him, but he's the only one I can trust completely. Reeves's phone buzzed. She answered, briefly listened, then disconnected. That was Dr. Christine York from the medical examiner's office. Your father's preliminary autopsy results are complete. She found elevated levels of blood pressure medication in tissue samples, more than double the therapeutic dose. Combined with his age and heart condition, it caused acute hypotension and cardiac arrest. The manner of death has been officially changed from natural causes to homicide. The word landed like a physical blow. Homicide. Intentional. Premeditated. Owen, we have sufficient evidence to arrest Audrey today, Reeves said carefully. But the exhumation order for Beatrice Sullivan is scheduled for tomorrow morning at dawn. If we wait 24 hours, we can arrest both Audrey and Monica simultaneously, with the complete scope of evidence covering both victims. Owen stared at the timeline on the whiteboard, the red lines connecting victim to perpetrator. His father had trusted him to finish this investigation properly. We wait, Owen said. We do this correctly. Both of them. Everything documented. We honor what Frederick built. Reeves nodded. Exhumation is scheduled for dawn tomorrow. We'll have toxicology results in 72 hours. Then we move on all targets simultaneously. Owen thought about his father's final recorded words. Owen will handle it. He would. Even if the cost was everything he had left. The life insurance policy wouldn't leave Owen alone. $550,000 Audrey named as sole beneficiary, purchased 4 months before Frederick died. Frederick's note had been explicit. I never agreed to this. Check my signature, it's not my handwriting. Owen had spent 28 years as a financial advisor. He knew insurance fraud when he saw it. The answer came from Audrey's own laptop seized through a search warrant Reeves had secured. 3 days after the forensic team finished at Frederick's house, Reeves called Owen back to the station. Angela Russo from AmeriLife Mutual sat across from Webb's sharp eyes and careful demeanor. We flagged this policy 6 weeks ago. Russo began spreading documents across the table. Even before Audrey Barrett filed the claim, She pointed to the application date. December 18th, 2023. Term life insurance $550,000 on Frederick Barrett, 83 years old with documented heart disease. Monthly premium of $340 automatically deducted from Frederick's checking account. Now, Audrey told him it was supplemental Medicare coverage, Owen said quietly. Russo nodded. Classic misdirection. When a policy this large gets taken out on an elderly person who passes within 6 months, we investigate automatically. She laid out signature samples. Frederick's genuine signatures from bank documents, medical forms, his will. Then the application signature. Owen saw the discrepancies immediately. The tremor marking Frederick's genuine writing was absent. The capital F was formed differently. We suspected forgery, but we needed corroboration. Then Detective Reeves contacted us with your father's note and the forensic findings. Reeves turned from the window, laptop in hand. Owen, before I show you what we found on Audrey's computer, I need you to prepare yourself. What the digital forensics team recovered shows planning, calculated methodical planning. She opened the laptop, angled the screen toward Owen. A spreadsheet of search history, time-stamped and organized. November 2023. Life insurance for elderly parents. How much life insurance can you buy on a parent timeline for life insurance payout after death? How to get power of attorney for elderly parent. December 2023. Legal consequences of forging signature best life insurance companies for elderly people. How long does life insurance investigation take? Owen stared at the dates. She'd researched this for weeks, systematically, like planning a business expansion. There's more, Reeves said quietly. The forensics tech pulled up another file. More searches from January through April. January 2024. Side effects of too much blood pressure medication. Symptoms of overdose in elderly. How long after death can autopsy detect medication? February death investigation procedures for elderly death certificate natural causes. March how to expedite life insurance claim. April. What happens if elderly person misses medication? Effects of double-dose blood pressure medication in elderly, survival rate after cardiac arrest in elderly. Then, April 11th, 2 days before Frederick died, hidden security cameras in living room, how to disable hidden cameras. She was looking for them, Reeves said. Your father hid the camera too well. Months of research on overdose, cardiac arrest, death investigations, all before Frederick passed. Assistant District Attorney Richard Cole entered, setting down his briefcase with a final sound. This changes everything. This isn't negligence. This is premeditation. The tech brought up email files next. Monica's address appeared immediately. The first message was dated March 28th, 3 weeks before Frederick died. From Audrey, Grandpa has an appointment with the lawyer on April 14th. Cooper's helping him change the will. If he cuts me out, we'll have nothing. The insurance policy is our only guaranteed payout now. We need to move before that appointment. Monica's response. Are you sure about this? There could be consequences. Audrey's reply. He's 83. Weak heart. These things happen all the time. No one will question it. You just need to be ready to play supportive when it happens. Monica, okay. But we have to be smart. No phone calls, just text. Delete everything after. Audrey, I've already planned it, trust me. Owen read the exchange 3 times, hoping he'd misunderstood. But there was no ambiguity. They'd discussed it, planned it, coordinated it. Webb stepped to the whiteboard, reconstructing the timeline with brutal precision. December insurance policy forged. January through March research phase. March 28th. Frederick schedules appointment with Cooper. Same day, Audrey emails Monica. April 11th. Audrey searches for hidden cameras. April 13th, double dose administered. Frederick attempts to call for help. 38 minutes later, Audrey calls 911. April 14th. Frederick's appointment never happens. April 16th, Audrey files insurance claim. Cole stood beside the timeline. The appointment with Cooper was the trigger. She knew she had less than 24 hours before Frederick cut her out completely. So she acted. Owen's voice came out strangled. She ended his life for money, for timing, because she couldn't wait even one more day. Cole laid out formal charges. Audrey Barrett, elder, financial abuse, fraud, forgery, identity theft, criminal conspiracy, and first-degree murder with special circumstances. Monica Walsh, criminal conspiracy, elder, financial abuse, fraud, obstruction of justice. The insurance policy and search history prove premeditation, Cole explained. The emails prove conspiracy. The autopsy proves cause. The video proves method. This is as complete a case as I've ever prosecuted. Reeves checked her watch. Do we wait for Beatrice Sullivan's exhumation results or execute arrest warrants now? Owen thought of his father's voice on Carl's recording. Owen will do what's right. Arrest them, Owen said. My father can't wait any longer. Chikiki, coordinated arrests, May 8th, 6 a.m. Audrey's apartment and Monica's house simultaneously. Owen's phone rang at 11 that night. Audrey's name lit up the screen. Dad. Sorry for calling so late. I just had this awful dream about Grandpa. Can I come over? 12 hours before her arrest, his daughter wanted to see him. Did she suspect something? Audrey, I'm already in bed. Can we talk tomorrow? Silence stretched between them. Yeah, Dad. Tomorrow. I love you. Love you too. The words felt like ash. It was the last time he'd say them to her as a free person. Owen sat in the dark, wondering how many parents had to make this choice: justice for the dead or mercy for the living. He knew which one his father would have wanted. Dawn would come in 7 hours. Then it would all be over. Before I reveal what happened during the most intense confrontation between father and daughter, I need to know you're still with me. Drop a comment below. If you were in Owen's position, would you confront your child face to face before the arrest? Or would you let the police handle everything without warning? Your perspective matters, and I'm curious to hear what you'd choose. Also, please note, the story ahead contains fictionalized elements that may not reflect actual events. If you'd rather not continue, feel free to stop the video here. Owen couldn't sleep the night before the arrests. At 2 a.m, he sat in his living room with Frederick's letter, "Choose truth over comfort, son. I love you." By 4, he'd made his decision. Before the police arrived, he needed to look his daughter in the eyes one more time. He needed to hear her say it, or deny it. He needed to know if any piece of the little girl he'd raised still existed. At 5:30, an hour before the coordinated arrests, Owen drove to Audrey's apartment and knocked. The door opened to reveal his daughter, sleepy-eyed and confused. She wore the Yale sweatshirt he'd bought her at graduation, flannel pajama pants, her hair in a messy bun. For one moment, she looked like his kid again. "Now, what are you doing here? It's 5:30 in the morning." Owen stood in the hallway, manila folder tucked under his arm. "Can I come in? We need to talk." The apartment was exactly as he remembered. One photograph caught his eye: Audrey and Frederick fishing, her maybe 8 years old, both grinning. Owen stared at it. "Do you remember that day?" "Of course. Grandpa taught me how to cast. I caught a sunfish and let it go. He was so proud. He loved you so much." Audrey's eyes filled. "I loved him too. I miss him every single day." Do you really?" Her expression shifted. "What kind of question is that?" Owen opened the folder set documents on the coffee table. "I found Dad's fishing creel. Inside was a passbook. Pinehurst Credit Union. $2,350,000. Audrey blinked. "What, Grandpa had that much money? You didn't know about that account, but you knew about the others, the ones you stole from." Audrey shot to her feet. "What are you talking about?" Owen pulled out the spreadsheet. $392,000. withdrawn from Dad's accounts between 2019 and 2024. Money that went straight into your failing gallery. Grandpa helped me. Those were loans. He documented every unauthorized withdrawal. He called it theft. Owen pulled out Frederick's journal. I understand you forged his signature after he revoked your power of attorney. I understand you tried to have him declared incompetent. Audrey's hands clenched. Who told you this? When Dad told me, he left me everything, including the truth. Owen placed the life insurance application on top. $550,000 policy. Purchased December 2023. You're the sole beneficiary. Dad never signed this. The signature's forged. He showed her the comparison. I've been a financial advisor for 28 years. I know a forged signature. Even if there was a paperwork error, you filed the claim 16 hours after he died. Silence. 16 hours. While I was arranging the funeral, you were calling the insurance company. Audrey's voice turned cold. I was handling practical matters. Dad installed security cameras 6 months ago. Hidden cameras. He recorded everything. Audrey went still. I saw you give him medication the night he died. Medication he'd already taken. I watched you wait while he struggled. 38 minutes before you called for help. I was trying to help him. You researched overdoses for months. Side effects of blood pressure medication. Symptoms of cardiac arrest. I have your search history, Audrey. Every question. Every website. You went through my computer. The police did, with a search warrant. You called the cops on your own daughter. Owen's voice broke. You ended my father's life. Audrey's expression cycled through emotions, then calculation. She slowly sat down, her face hardening. I want a lawyer. You're definitely going to need one. Audrey looked at him, and the mask dropped completely. No tears, no pain. Just cold assessment. How much of that $2 million do I get? I'm his granddaughter. I have rights. You forfeited every right when you... He couldn't finish. Audrey stood pacing. Grandpa was confused. Dementia. He forgot he'd taken his medication. It was an accident. He passed cognitive testing in 2022. He was sharp until the end. I have video of him arguing with you completely lucid. Then it was a mistake. A tragic accident. Owen pulled out the final document. Emails between you and your mother, dated March 28th. We need to move before that appointment. You discussed timing. You discussed the insurance policy as your guaranteed payout. You planned this. You're recording this conversation, aren't you? Owen pulled out his phone. Yes. So you'd do this to your own daughter. You ended my father's life for money. What did you think I'd do? Audrey's voice turned venomous. He was old. Sick. He had maybe a few years left anyway. That money was going to be mine eventually. Owen stood. He had time. You stole that from him. And from me. Through the window, police cars pulled into the parking lot. Audrey saw them, understood. Dad, I'm sorry. For the girl you could have been. But you made your choices, and now I'm making mine. Detective Reeves and officers appeared in the hallway. A knock at the door. Audrey looked at Owen one last time. I'll never forgive you for this. I'll never forgive you for what you did to him. Reeves entered, badge visible. Audrey Barrett, you're under arrest for the murder of Frederick Barrett. Audrey held Owen's gaze as the officer placed handcuffs on her wrists. You just destroyed your family. Owen watched her disappear into the police car. His phone buzzed. Monica Walsh arrested. Then Raymond Cooper, Owen Frederick included a specific provision about what happens if Audrey is convicted. You need to come to my office today. There's something your father wanted you to know. Owen stood in the empty hallway as dawn broke. He thought of his father's last words, Owen will do what's right. He had, even though it shattered him. The hardest part was over. The worst part was just beginning. The processing area at Riverside Police Station smelled like industrial cleaner and desperation. Owen sat in Detective Reeves's office watching through two-way glass as Audrey was fingerprinted, photographed, and cataloged. She'd been silent since the arrest. No tears, no protests, just cold compliance. In the adjacent room, Monica Walsh was demanding her lawyer, threatening lawsuits, insisting this was all a misunderstanding. Reeves appeared beside him with coffee. Arraignment set for tomorrow morning. Both of them. Owen couldn't look away from his daughter being booked. What happens if she doesn't make bail? County jail until trial. That could be 6 months, maybe longer. The charges were read formally. Audrey Barrett, elder, financial abuse, fraud, forgery, identity theft, criminal conspiracy, and premeditated homicide of Frederick Barrett. Monica Walsh, conspiracy to commit elder financial abuse fraud as an accomplice, obstruction of justice. We're also reopening the Beatrice Sullivan case, Reeves added. Exhumations scheduled for May 10th. If we find similar evidence, additional charges will follow. The morning news picked up the story. Local channels called it a shocking case of elder abuse and suspicious death. One text from an old friend cut deep. How could you do this to your own daughter? The arraignment drew a packed courtroom. Media lined the courthouse steps. Owen sat in the gallery with Carl Winters. Judge Judith Harper presided, a woman in her early 60s with steel-gray hair and a reputation for brooking no nonsense. Audrey entered first orange jumpsuit, replacing the Yale sweatshirt, hands cuffed, flanked by her attorney. Samantha Crane was everything Owen had feared, mid-40s, expensive suit, a reputation for defending white-collar criminals who walked free. Monica followed separately with Trevor Hayes. Judge Harper's eyebrows rose. Mr. Hayes, I'm noting a potential conflict of interest. Public records show a personal relationship between you and Miss Walsh. Hayes didn't flinch. Your Honor, Ms. Walsh specifically requested my representation. She's waived any conflict. The charges took 8 minutes to read aloud. Each word landed like a hammer. Both defendants entered pleas not guilty. Assistant District Attorney Cole stood. Your Honor, given the severity of these charges and the risk of flight, the state requests remand without bail. Samantha Crane rose smoothly. Your Honor, my client has deep community ties, no prior criminal record, and operates a successful business. These charges are based on circumstantial evidence and family conflict. Bail is appropriate. Judge Harper leaned back. Bail hearing at 2 p.m. tomorrow. Defendants are remanded until then. The gavel came down. Owen watched Audrey being led away. She didn't look at him. Outside, the media descended. Microphones thrust forward, questions shouted. Mr. Barrett, did you turn in your own daughter? Do you believe she's guilty? Carl shielded Owen, helped him to the car. That night, Owen watched the local news coverage. His face appeared on screen, drawn, haunted. The anchor described him as the financial advisor who reported his own daughter to police after discovering evidence his father's death may not have been natural. One message stood out. From Iris Sullivan, saw the news. Thank you for your courage. Beatrice finally gets justice. The bail hearing packed the courtroom even tighter. Cole laid out his case methodically. Your Honor, Audrey Barrett is accused of ending her grandfather's life for insurance money. She researched methods for months. She has access to stolen funds. Her grandfather had $2.35 million in a hidden account she didn't know about. She is an extreme flight risk. Samantha Crane countered. Your Honor, my client is innocent until proven guilty. The state's case is built on speculation and family drama. Owen Barrett has financial interest in seeing his daughter convicted. He stands to inherit his father's estate. Judge Harper delivered her ruling. High bail for Audrey Barrett is set at $1 million. Defendant must surrender passport, wear electronic monitoring, and have no contact with co-defendant or witnesses. Bail for Monica Walsh, $500,000. Same conditions. Within 6 hours, Audrey's bail had been posted. Reeves called Owen. She's out, ankle monitor, but she's free. How she doesn't have $1 million. Her lawyer found a way. Used frozen gallery assets plus a loan secured against her anticipated inheritance from Frederick's estate. Owen wanted to throw the phone. His father's money funding her freedom. Monica remained in custody. Trevor Hayes couldn't raise $500,000 fast enough. The next morning, Owen saw Audrey outside his office building. She stood across the street, watching. When their eyes met, she didn't look away. Just stared, cold and assessing. Owen called Reeves. "Now, she's not violating the no-contact order unless she approaches you, but I'll have patrol swing by regularly." That night, Owen dreamed about the fishing creel, about Frederick's face, about 8-year-old Audrey saying, "I love you, Dad." He woke at 3 a.m. and cried for the first time since the arrests. The exhumation of Beatrice Sullivan happened quietly on May 10th. A small cemetery spring morning, Iris Sullivan attended. Owen went to support her. "The 3 years," Iris whispered, gripping his hand. "I've waited 3 years to know if I was right." Dr. Christine York supervised the procedure forensic team taking samples. When it was done, York spoke gently to Iris. "Toxicology takes 10 to 14 days. But if there's evidence of similar medication tampering as in Frederick Barrett's case, we'll find it." Iris nodded. "That's all I ask. The truth." 2 more weeks until they knew if Audrey had ended 2 lives or just 1. Owen's phone rang as they left the cemetery. Reeves' voice tight with urgency. "Owen, Monica Walsh wants to deal. She's willing to testify against Audrey in exchange for reduced charges. Says she has evidence we don't saved messages, recordings of conversations with Audrey, proof it was all Audrey's idea and she just went along." Reeves paused. "Cole's considering it. But if Monica testifies, defense will argue she's unreliable. Could strengthen our case or weaken it. A cooperating witness with credibility issues. A moral dilemma wrapped in legal strategy. There's something else," Reeves continued. "Raymond Cooper called. Says Frederick's will has a clause you need to see. Something about what happens if Audrey's convicted. He says it'll change everything. Can you meet him today?" Owen stared at the cemetery behind him, at the freshly disturbed earth where Beatrice had rested for 3 years. His father had planned for this moment. Had left one final message waiting. "I'll be there in an hour." Whatever Frederick had hidden in his will, whatever secret clause he'd written, Owen was about to discover it. And somehow he knew it would reshape everything he thought he understood about his father's final days. The dead, it seemed, still had secrets to tell. Raymond Cooper's law office smelled like old books and lemon polish. Owen had been here dozens of times, but today felt different. Raymond sat across from him with Frederick's will expression grave. "Owen, your father anticipated this scenario. He added a codicil in January 3 months before he passed. He titled it, 'In Case of Audrey's Betrayal.' Those were his exact words." Raymond slid the document across the desk. Owen read his father's handwriting, seeing Frederick's foresight and heartbreak spelled out with brutal clarity. "To my son, Owen Barrett, you inherit my entire estate with the following provisions. If my granddaughter Audrey Barrett is convicted of any crime related to my finances, person, or death, she shall receive nothing. Not $1. Furthermore, all assets she obtained through theft shall be recovered and donated to the Riverside Elder Protection Center in memory of Beatrice Sullivan. Should Audrey be convicted, Owen shall establish the Frederick and Helen Barrett Foundation for Financial Literacy and Elder Protection. Initial funding $500,000 from my estate. Owen, if you're reading this clause, it means my worst fear came true. I'm sorry you have to carry this burden, but I know you'll choose truth over comfort. Be brave, son. Justice hurts, but it's necessary. I love you. Dad." Owen's eyes filled. He knew. He knew she might. Raymond pulled out the estate summary. Net value approximately $2.1 million. 500,000 designated for the foundation. The rest to Owen. Audrey written out completely. He changed this 3 months before he died. Owen whispered. He was already protecting against her. 5 days later, Monica Walsh signed her cooperation agreement in Richard Cole's office. The terms were stark. Testify truthfully against Audrey, plead guilty to reduced charges, recommended sentence 8 to 12 years. Without the deal, conspiracy to commit murder carried life. Monica's statement was recorded, transcribed, devastating. Audrey came to me in November 2023. Said she was drowning in gallery debt. Said Frederick was hoarding money he didn't need. She asked me to notarize documents. Power of attorney, insurance applications. I knew Frederick hadn't signed them, but I did it anyway, Cole pressed. What about March 2024? Audrey said Frederick was meeting a lawyer to cut her out completely. She said, I need that insurance policy, $550,000. That's my only guaranteed payout now. Then she said, Monica's voice dropped. She said, old people have heart attacks all the time. Nobody questions it. Owen listened through the speaker, stomach churning. His ex-wife had known, had participated, had profited. On May 24th, Dr. Christine York called Owen directly. Results are in. You need to sit down. Tell me. Toxicology from Beatrice Sullivan's bone marrow and hair samples shows elevated levels of sedatives and prescription opioids in the weeks before her death. Drugs she was never prescribed, combined with her medical history and circumstances, cause of death, respiratory failure due to drug overdose. Manner of death, homicide. 2 victims, same method, same perpetrator. We're filing additional charges. Audrey Barrett will be charged with the premeditated murder of Beatrice Sullivan. This establishes a pattern. She did this twice. Cole filed the amended charges the next day. Audrey Barrett now faced 7 major felonies: elder financial abuse, fraud, forgery, identity theft, criminal conspiracy, and 2 counts of premeditated murder. Maximum exposure, 50 years to life. The summer became a blur of preparation. June brought witness depositions. July brought motions and counter-motions. August brought psychological evaluation. The psychologist's report was clinical. Defendant exhibits narcissistic personality traits, demonstrates lack of empathy for victims, and shows no remorse. However, she is competent to stand trial. September brought jury selection. 80 potential jurors screened down to 12 plus alternates. October brought final witness lists. Prosecution 14 witnesses, including Owen Reeves, Webb, York, Carl, Iris, Dennis, and Monica. Defense 3 witnesses, including a geriatric psychiatrist who'd never examined Frederick, a handwriting expert, and a character witness. On October 15th, Samantha Crane filed her defense strategy. Owen read it in Cole's office, each word a knife. Frederick Barrett suffered from undiagnosed cognitive decline. Audrey was a devoted caregiver. Financial transactions were authorized by Frederick, who often forgot giving permission. Frederick's death was natural cardiac arrest due to heart disease. Owen Barrett has financial motive to see his daughter convicted. He stands to inherit the entire $2 million estate. Owen looked up at Cole. They're going to make me the villain. They're going to try. That's why our case has to be airtight. Video evidence, search history, emails, financial records, medical examiner. We prove premeditation so clearly that attacking you won't matter. On October 30th, Judge Harper set the trial date November 4th, 2024. Estimated duration 10 to 12 days. The courtroom would be open to media. That night, Owen couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Frederick's will, about that clause titled, "In case of Audrey's betrayal." His father had known this day would come. The next morning, November 3rd, one day before trial, Owen found an envelope slipped under his apartment door. Inside Audrey's handwriting. Dad, you still have time to stop this. Tell them you were wrong. Mom's going to prison because of you. I'm going to prison because of you. Is that what you want? Grandpa's gone, but you could still have a daughter. Or you can have money and be alone forever. Choose. Owen read it 3 times. Then he understood. She still didn't get it. After everything, Audrey thought he could be bought or manipulated with guilt. Thought this was about money, about choosing between her and Frederick. She'd never understood it was about truth. He placed the letter in an evidence bag called Reeves. Audrey sent me a letter. Might be witness tampering. Bring it in. I'll document it. Then Owen sat in his quiet apartment and thought about the next 2 weeks, about taking the stand, about looking at his daughter across a courtroom while prosecutors asked if she'd ended Frederick's life for insurance money, about 12 strangers deciding if the little girl who'd once caught a sunfish and let it go had become a woman who researched cardiac arrest and calculated the value of human life in dollars. Tomorrow the trial began, and whatever happened, nothing would ever be the same. Riverside County Superior Court Courtroom 4. November 4th, 2024. Nothing could have prepared Owen for the moment of walking through those heavy oak doors and seeing his daughter seated at the defense table 12 feet away. Audrey wore a navy suit that read as modest and subdued minimal makeup hair, pulled back in a style that suggested professionalism rather than her usual artistic flair. Her attorney had crafted her image with surgical precision, victim of circumstance, not perpetrator of calculated crimes. She didn't look at Owen as he took his seat in the gallery's front row. Judge Judith Harper entered from chambers, a commanding presence in her early 60s, with gray hair pulled back severely. The gallery was packed beyond capacity. Carl Winters sat solid and reassuring beside Owen Iris. Sullivan sat across the aisle with her hands folded and her back rigidly straight. 12 jurors occupied the box, 7 women, 5 men. Faces already carrying the seriousness of people who understood they were about to hear something that would stay with them long after verdicts were rendered. Assistant District Attorney Richard Cole approached the jury box with quiet confidence. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about cold, calculated betrayal of the most vulnerable among us. Over the next several days, you're going to hear about Frederick Barrett, 83 years old, who trusted his granddaughter completely. You're going to hear about Beatrice Sullivan, 79 years old, who welcomed that same granddaughter into her life with open arms. Both placed their confidence in Audrey Barrett. Both were elderly. Both had significant financial assets she wanted access to, and both ended up dead under circumstances initially ruled natural, but which evidence will prove were anything but accidental. Cole outlined the financial architecture bank records, showing $392,000 systematically stolen from Frederick over 5 years, another $155,000 extracted from Beatrice. Search history recovered from Audrey's devices documenting months of research on medication overdoses and cardiac arrest in elderly patients. Video footage showing Audrey administering medication to Frederick and then leaving the room while he struggled for help that didn't arrive for 38 critical minutes. This isn't a story about tragic accidents or natural decline. It's a story about greed so profound that it overwhelmed any sense of family loyalty or basic human decency. The evidence will demonstrate beyond any reasonable doubt that Audrey Barrett is guilty of 2 counts of premeditated murder, multiple counts of elder financial abuse, fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Defense attorney Samantha Crane rose, offering the jury a warm smile. Mr. Cole just painted a dramatic picture designed to inflame your emotions rather than engage your reason. But here's what he carefully avoided telling you. Audrey Barrett is a devoted granddaughter who provided hands-on care for her elderly grandfather during the final difficult years of his life when no one else was willing. Frederick Barrett was 83 years old with advanced cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and documented episodes of confusion regarding his medications. Crane gestured toward Audrey, who sat with hands-folded eyes downcast. "The prosecution wants you to believe she researched ways to harm her grandfather. The actual explanation: she researched how to properly care for elderly people with complex medical needs. They want you to believe financial transactions were theft. The reality: Frederick authorized those transactions to help his granddaughter's struggling business, and later forgot about them, as elderly people experiencing cognitive decline frequently do." Crane moved closer to the jury box. "Here's something else Mr. Cole failed to mention. Owen Barrett, Frederick's son, stands to inherit over $2 million if his daughter is convicted of these charges. He has every financial incentive to interpret ambiguous evidence in the worst possible light, to transform his daughter into a monster so he can claim the entire estate. This case isn't about evidence of crimes. It's about family conflict, bitter inheritance disputes, and a desperate attempt to make natural deaths look like murders." Owen felt physically ill. She'd just told 12 strangers he was framing his own daughter for financial gain. Cole called Detective Catherine Reeves to the stand. She detailed the investigations beginning the discovery of Frederick's fishing creel with its hidden compartment, the micro SD card containing months of documentation. "Detective Reeves, what did the video from April 13, 2024 show?" At 8:47 p.m., Audrey Barrett enters the living room, where Frederick is watching television. She's carrying a pill organizer. Frederick tells her clearly that he already took his evening blood pressure medication. She insists he needs to take it again, that he's confused. After approximately 3 minutes, he complies. She leaves the room. At 8:55 p.m., Frederick appears to experience discomfort. At 9:03 p.m., Frederick exhibits clear signs of distress. He reaches for his cell phone, but lacks the coordination to grasp it. He calls out for help. Audrey is visible in an adjacent room, apparently aware of his distress, but not approaching or calling for assistance. At 9:41 p.m., 38 minutes after Frederick first showed distress, Audrey calls 911. The courtroom had gone absolutely silent. Owen closed his eyes, unable to watch the jury's faces as they absorbed what those 38 minutes meant. The second day brought Dr. Christine York to the stand. Toxicology analysis of tissue samples from Frederick Barrett showed blood pressure medication present at levels more than double the therapeutic dose. Combined with his age and cardiac conditions, this caused acute hypotension, leading to cardiac arrest. The manner of death was changed from natural causes to homicide. The word echoed through the courtroom. "Dr. York, you also conducted examination of remains belonging to Beatrice Sullivan, correct?" "Yes. Despite the passage of 3 years, we obtained viable tissue samples. Toxicology revealed elevated levels of sedatives and prescription opioids not prescribed to Miss Sullivan by any physician. The combination caused respiratory depression, leading to respiratory failure. Manner of death: homicide." The third day brought Iris Sullivan to the stand. "Beatrice and I were extremely close. Then, in early 2021, Audrey Barrett began spending time with Beatrice. Within months, my phone calls went unreturned. Beatrice changed her will completely, cutting me out. She died 3 months after that will change. I knew something was profoundly wrong, but no one believed me. Until now." By the time court adjourned, the jury looked exhausted. Owen walked out into November dusk and felt his phone vibrate. Cole's name on the screen. "Owen, tomorrow's your day on the stand. Are you ready for this?" Owen thought about the fishing creel that had started everything, about Frederick's patient hands, teaching him to cast a line. About Audrey at that same age, laughing on the riverbank with her grandfather's arm around her shoulders. Tomorrow he would stand before 12 strangers and his daughter and sacrifice whatever remained of their relationship to honor what Frederick had documented. "I'm ready," Owen said, and meant it. The witness stand felt smaller than Owen had imagined during all the nights he'd rehearsed this moment. Just 12 feet separated him from where Audrey sat at the defense table, close enough to see every detail of her expression as the court clerk administered the oath. Do you swear to tell the whole account? Nothing but the complete account, so help you God. Owen placed his right hand on the worn leather cover. I do. Audrey looked up from the legal pad, where Samantha Crane had been writing notes. Their eyes met across that impossible distance, and for a fraction of a second, something flickered across her face, fear, perhaps, or calculation. Then the expression vanished, replaced by wounded innocence so perfectly crafted it might have fooled him if he hadn't spent months studying the evidence of what she'd actually done. Assistant District Attorney Richard Cole approached with measured confidence. Please state your name for the record. Owen Michael Barrett. And Mr. Barrett, what is your relationship to the defendant? Owen took a breath that felt like it might be his last before everything changed irrevocably. She is my daughter. Cole began with establishing foundation, walking Owen through his career as a financial advisor, his marriage to Monica Walsh in 1995, their divorce in 2007, one child from that marriage, Audrey Marie Barrett, now 32 years old. Mr. Barrett, tell us about your relationship with your father, Frederick Barrett. My father was my hero. He taught me about integrity through example, about patience through the way he approached problems, about honesty as the foundation of character. After my mother passed away in 2006, Dad and I grew even closer. We had dinner together every Sunday evening without exception. We talked about everything. Did you have a good relationship with your daughter during this period? I believed I did. I loved her without reservation. I was proud of her gallery and the artistic community she was building, but I'm forced to acknowledge now that I saw what I wanted to see rather than what was there. When did that perception change? April 16, 2024, the day after my father's funeral. Owen described discovering the fishing creel in Frederick's garage. Audrey's immediate attempt to dismiss it as worthless junk that should be thrown out. His decision to keep it, despite her insistence. Something felt profoundly wrong about how urgently she wanted me to dispose of it. Cole held up the creel, now bearing an evidence tag. When you opened this item and discovered the false bottom your father had constructed, what did you find inside? A Pinehurst Credit Union passbook showing an account balance of $2.35 million. A micro SD card. A notarized statement documenting protection measures, and a 3-page handwritten letter addressed to me. What did that letter communicate? Owen's voice caught slightly. He wrote that he was sorry for putting this burden on me, but that I was the only person he could fully rely on. He wrote that Audrey had been stealing from him systematically for years, and that he had proof of every transaction. He asked me to find the complete account, and to make certain justice was served, regardless of personal cost. What else did you discover on that micro SD card? 47 video files recorded over approximately 6 months. A handwritten journal spanning 47 pages, meticulously documenting unauthorized withdrawals with dates, amounts, and descriptions. A spreadsheet calculating total theft at $392,000 over 5 years. So, Mr. Barrett, when you first discovered this evidence, did you want to believe your daughter had committed these acts? Absolutely not. I wanted desperately to be wrong. But then I watched the video from April 13th, and wanting to be wrong became irrelevant. Tell the jury what you observed in that video. Owen gripped the edge of the witness stand. I saw my father seated in his recliner wearing the blue flannel shirt I'd given him for Christmas. He looked frail but mentally alert watching a baseball game. Then Audrey walked into the frame carrying medication. She told him it was time for his blood pressure medication. He responded clearly that he'd already taken it. She insisted with gentle firmness. He took the medication she provided. Then she left the room. Owen's hands began trembling visibly. For 38 minutes after that, my father sat alone in that chair. The camera shows him reaching for his cell phone. His hands were shaking so badly he couldn't maintain grip. The phone fell to the floor. He tried to stand, his legs wouldn't support his weight. His breathing became increasingly labored and distressed. He was struggling for his life, and the person who should have been helping him was somewhere else in the house, aware of his condition, doing nothing. When did the defendant return to the room? 9:29 p.m. according to the timestamp. She came back into frame, acted shocked to discover him unresponsive, then called 911 with what sounded like genuine panic to anyone who didn't know she'd given him medication and abandoned him 38 minutes earlier. But I just watched the entire sequence. I knew what she'd done. Cole addressed Judge Harper. Your Honor, at this time, the people would like to present video evidence to the jury. The courtroom lights dimmed. The jury watched in absolute silence as the timestamp appeared, April 13th, 2024, 2047. Frederick Barrett in his recliner, then Audrey entering with medication. The exchange about whether he'd already taken his pills. His reluctant compliance. Her departure. The long minutes that followed as Frederick struggled, reaching for the phone, collapsing. Finally, Audrey rushing back at 21:29, calling 911. The video ended. The screens went dark. The jury looked collectively stunned, several members visibly struggling with what they'd just witnessed. Cole introduced Frederick's journal, and Owen read selected entries at his request, his voice breaking as he read the final entry, dated April 12th, 2024. If I don't make it to the April 14th appointment with Cooper, you'll understand why. Owen, be brave. Choose what's right over what's comfortable. I love you more than I can express. Don't let her win. Several jurors were openly crying now. Oh, Mr. Barrett, under the terms of your father's will, do you stand to inherit his estate if the defendant is convicted? Yes. If Audrey was convicted of any crime related to financial exploitation or harm against him, she would receive nothing, and I would inherit his estate. Is that financial inheritance why you're testifying here today? Owen looked directly at the jury. No. I'm testifying because my father deserved to spend his final years in peace and security. I'm testifying because what's right matters more than money, more than family loyalty, more than preserving my relationship with my daughter. If I have to lose her completely to honor him, that's a choice I'm willing to make. The gallery had gone utterly silent. Cole returned to the prosecution table. No further questions, Your Honor. During the lunch recess, Owen sat alone in a courthouse conference room. At 13:15, his phone vibrated with a text from a blocked number. You just destroyed your daughter's life on that witness stand. Hope Frederick's money was worth trading your child for. Was it worth it, Owen? He deleted it without responding. Because yes, it had been worth it. If doing what's right meant this kind of cost, then he'd chosen correctly, even if the price felt unbearable. Frederick had known what he was asking, had known Owen would pay whatever was required, and Owen would honor that belief no matter what came next. The morning of November 8th, 2024, arrived with the cold precision of justice waiting to be served. Owen Barrett settled into the gallery's third row as Audrey sat at the defense table 12 feet away, refusing to look in his direction. The jurors filed in with expressions betraying their anticipation. They had heard Owen's direct testimony the previous day, the creel, the micro SD card, the 38-minute video that had left several of them visibly shaken. Now it was Samantha Crane's turn to dismantle the prosecution's narrative. Crane approached the witness stand, where Owen had been recalled for cross-examination. Mr. Barrett, after your daughter is convicted, how much will you inherit from your father's estate? The question landed like a blow. Owen exhaled slowly. Approximately $2.1 million after taxes and probate. Crane let the number hang in the air. And when did you learn about this inheritance? In May, when Mr. Cooper read the will. But you began investigating in mid-April, correct, before your father passed away. Owen confirmed. Yes, but the reason wasn't money. Crane didn't give him space to breathe. Do you realize that if your daughter were found innocent, you would only receive half that amount? Owen met her gaze directly. I wasn't investigating for money. I was investigating because my father asked me to find the truth. Crane's approach shifted, her voice softening. Mr. Barrett, you and your daughter were once very close, weren't you? Owen hesitated. When she was young, we were very close. Crane held up a photograph showing Owen and Audrey beside Cold Creek in 2006, both grinning with fishing rods. Is this you and Audrey? Owen looked at the image, pain etched across his face. Yes. When did that relationship change? After my divorce in 2010, Audrey stayed with her mother. We grew apart. Crane nodded. And did you feel betrayed when your daughter chose to live with her mother? Owen paused. Yes. But that has nothing to do with this case. Crane let the admission settle, her point made, that Owen's motivations might not be as pure as he claimed. The afternoon session brought Monica Walsh to the stand. Monica, wearing the orange jumpsuit of Riverside County Jail, had agreed to a cooperation deal reducing her potential 25-year sentence to 8 to 12 years in exchange for truthful testimony against Audrey. Cole began gently. Ms. Walsh, please describe your relationship with Audrey Barrett. Monica's voice trembled. I'm a notary public and a state attorney. Audrey hired me in 2019 to handle paperwork related to Frederick and Beatrice Sullivan. Were you aware of any unlawful financial transactions? Monica nodded, avoiding Audrey's cold stare. Yes. Audrey asked me to notarize several power of attorney documents that Frederick didn't actually sign. Cole presented a document. Is this one of those documents? Yes. I notarized it in November 2023, but Frederick wasn't present. Why did you do that? Monica's answer came with shame and fear. Audrey paid me $89,000 over 4 years and threatened to expose other notarial violations I'd committed if I didn't cooperate. Were you aware that Audrey planned to purchase life insurance on Frederick? Yes. She told me in late March 2024 that she'd finalized it and would receive $550,000 if Frederick passed away. Crane's cross-examination was brutal. Ms. Walsh, isn't it true that you're testifying here today to save yourself from spending the rest of your life in prison? Monica admitted, yes, but I'm also testifying because it's the truth. Crane didn't relent. You committed fraud. You forged documents, and now you expect this jury to believe you're suddenly truthful. I know what I did was wrong, but Audrey was the one who planned everything. The following day brought Iris Sullivan to the stand, establishing the pattern the prosecution needed. Her testimony about Beatrice's isolation, the unexplained financial transfers, and the sudden will change corroborated everything the prosecution had claimed. That afternoon, Crane called Dr. Martin Schaefer, a geriatric psychologist, who reviewed Frederick's medical records and suggested mild cognitive impairment could explain medication confusion. But Cole's recross dismantled much of Schaefer's conclusions by emphasizing Frederick's coherent journal entries, showing full awareness of Audrey's thefts. On November 12th, Judge Harper asked, "Does the defense wish to call the defendant?" Crane stood. "No, Your Honor. The defendant will exercise her Fifth Amendment right and will not testify." The jury's reaction was immediate. Several jurors glanced at Audrey, whose face remained impassive. Owen felt a hollowness settle in his chest. His daughter would not speak, would not explain, would not offer her version of events. As the trial day concluded, Owen walked to his car and found a yellow envelope tucked under his windshield wiper. Inside was the same photograph Crane had used during cross-examination. On the back, in Audrey's handwriting, "Before and after money. Which did you choose, Dad?" Owen folded the photograph and placed it in his jacket pocket, the ache deepening. His daughter still believed this fight was about money. She didn't understand. It was about truth, about justice for Frederick and Beatrice, about honoring a man who had been betrayed by the person he trusted most. Owen texted Reeves, "Got the envelope? She still doesn't get it." Reeves replied, Be ready. Tomorrow's the last day. Cole's closing will be strong. Owen sat in his car for a long moment, the photograph heavy in his pocket. Tomorrow, the jury would begin deliberations, and the fate of Audrey Barrett and the remnants of Owen's family would be decided. The morning of November 13th, 2024 carried a different weight than all the days before. Day 10 of the trial. Closing arguments. The last chance for both sides to tell their story. Owen sat in the gallery as ADA Richard Cole approached the jury with Frederick's creel in one hand and a photograph of his father smiling on a boat in the other. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Cole began, his voice steady. This case is about love, and what happens when love dies and greed takes its place. Cole placed the creel on the evidence table, the photograph of Frederick facing the jury like a silent witness. Frederick Barrett lived 83 years. He worked as a civil engineer for 38 years. He saved his money with diligence. $2.35 million earned over a lifetime. He intended to leave it to his family. He loved them both. Cole paused. But Frederick discovered something heartbreaking. The granddaughter he'd taught to fish had become someone who stole from him. $392,000 over 5 years. Someone who forged signatures, manipulated accounts, tried to have him declared incompetent. When those things failed, she turned to something more brutal. Cole played key moments from the video. The timestamp visible, the image of Audrey entering with a pill bottle. April 13th, 2024. Audrey Barrett gave her grandfather medication he'd already taken. He told her he'd already taken it. She insisted. Why? Because she'd researched what would happen. You've seen her search history, effects of double-dose blood pressure medication, causes of cardiac arrest in elderly patients. She researched. She planned. And 3 days before Frederick could remove her from the will, she acted. Cole turned to face Audrey, who sat motionless. The defense wants you to believe this was an accident. But accidents don't include months of research. Accidents don't happen exactly 24 hours before a meeting with an attorney. Accidents don't follow the same pattern applied to another elderly victim, Beatrice Sullivan, 3 years earlier. Cole displayed the timeline: Beatrice in 2021, Frederick in 2024, the same method, the same result. This isn't an accident. This is a pattern. Cole walked along the jury box. The defense has attacked Owen Barrett's motives. They've suggested he fabricated this case for money. But think about what Owen sacrificed. He turned in his own daughter. He knew he would lose her forever, and he did it anyway. Why? Because his father asked him to make a choice: truth or comfort, justice or family loyalty. And Owen Barrett made the hardest choice a parent can make. Cole picked up Frederick's photograph. Find her guilty. Because truth matters. Because they mattered. Because justice delayed is justice denied. Samantha Crane rose with a different energy, softer, more reasonable, inviting doubt. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to tell you that Audrey Barrett is perfect. She made mistakes. She took money from her grandfather, money that Frederick voluntarily gave. But accepting help isn't the same as taking a life. Crane's voice carried sympathy. What evidence do you have? A video showing Audrey giving medication. But you don't know what medication. You can't see the bottle. Elderly patients frequently forget and accidentally take double doses. That's not a crime. That's a tragedy. Crane moved along the jury box. You have search history. But which of us hasn't Googled medical symptoms? You have testimony from Monica Walsh, a woman facing prison time who made a deal to reduce her sentence. Can you trust her? Crane turned to face Owen. Let's talk about Owen Barrett. Frederick's will is very clear. If Audrey is convicted, Owen inherits everything. If she's acquitted, he has to share. Owen will receive over $1 million more because of your guilty verdict. That's his motive. Crane returned to center. Reasonable doubt, ladies and gentlemen. That's all you need. And this case is full of it. Judge Harper's instructions were thorough. You must find the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt on each count. If you have reasonable doubt, you must find her not guilty. The jury filed out. The waiting began. Hours turned to days. November 14th brought no verdict. November 15th, 10:30 in the morning. The jury has reached a verdict. The courtroom filled beyond capacity. Audrey entered pale and trembling. The jury filed in, not one looked at Audrey. Judge Harper's voice cut through the tension. Has the jury reached a verdict? The foreperson stood. Yes, Your Honor. Will the defendant please rise? Audrey stood craned beside her. The clerk's voice was clear and emotionless. On count 1, elder financial abuse of Frederick Barrett, guilty. On count 2, fraud, guilty. On count 3, identity theft, guilty. On count 4, forgery, guilty. On count 5, conspiracy with Monica Walsh, guilty. And on count 6, intentionally causing the death of Frederick Barrett, guilty. On count 7, intentionally causing the death of Beatrice Sullivan, guilty. Guilty on all counts. Audrey's knees buckled and Crane caught her. The gallery erupted in whispers. Judge Harper's gavel struck 3 times. Order. Sentencing is scheduled for December 18th. Bail is revoked. The defendant is remanded into custody. Officers approached Audrey with handcuffs. She was led away. Owen sat motionless, numb. Carl Winters leaned close. You did it. Frederick got justice. Owen didn't feel victory, only exhaustion and loss. Outside, the media descended. Mr. Barrett, how do you feel about the verdict? Owen's voice was hoarse. My father's life mattered. That's all that matters. That night alone in his apartment, Owen opened the creel one final time. Beneath where Frederick had hidden the evidence, he found one more item, a small envelope addressed, "For Owen, open after I'm gone." Inside was a letter dated April 12, 2024, one day before Frederick passed away. Son, if you're reading this, it means you did what I asked. You chose truth. I know the price you paid. I know you lost your daughter to get justice for me. But here's what I want you to understand. Audrey was already lost, not because of this verdict. She lost herself years ago when she decided money mattered more than people. You didn't send her to prison. She sent herself. You were just brave enough to hold up the mirror. I'm proud of you. I love you. And I promise you, 20 years from now, you'll know you made the right choice. Even if tonight you don't feel like it. Dad. 33 days after the verdict, Owen returned to courtroom 4B for the final act. The jury's work was finished, guilt established. What remained was simply the arithmetic of consequence. Audrey shuffled into the room, wearing an orange jumpsuit that hung loose on her frame. She had lost weight, her hair falling limp around a face that seemed older than 32. She didn't look at Owen. Hadn't looked at him since the verdict was read. Iris Sullivan approached the witness stand first, when Judge Harper invited victim impact statements. At 74, she carried herself with quiet dignity, though her hands trembled as she unfolded her prepared statement. Your Honor, my sister Beatrice lived 79 years. For 3 of those years after she passed in October 2021, I believed she died naturally. I carried guilt that wasn't mine to carry. Now I know what really happened. Beatrice didn't die naturally. She was given medications she should never have received. Her trust was betrayed by someone she called the granddaughter I never had. Iris's voice grew firmer. Audrey Barrett took $155,000 from my sister. But money isn't the most painful part. She stole Beatrice's final months. She stole her dignity. She stole her life. Your Honor, I ask for the maximum sentence. Not for revenge, but because Beatrice's life mattered. When Iris returned to her seat, Owen stood to deliver his own statement. Walking to the podium felt like crossing a desert. Your Honor, my father was Frederick Michael Barrett. He lived 83 years. He was a civil engineer, a veteran, a widower, a father and grandfather. He taught me how to fish, how to balance a checkbook, how to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Owen's voice caught. The defendant is my daughter. I raised her. I loved her. I still love her, though I don't recognize who she became. He looked directly at Audrey. My father spent the last 6 months of his life knowing he was being stolen from. He installed cameras in his own home because he couldn't trust his family. He died alone, struggling to breathe while the person he loved waited in another room. Owen departed from his script. I don't know when she stopped being my daughter and became someone capable of this. I don't know if I missed warning signs or if they were never there. He turned back to Audrey. The last letter my father left for me said, "She lost herself years ago. You didn't send her to prison. She sent herself." I have to believe that, because if I don't, the guilt will destroy me. Owen's hands gripped the podium. Your Honor, I ask for fairness. Not vengeance. Fairness. Maybe this sentence can prevent the next elderly person from becoming a target. Samantha Crane's plea for leniency emphasized Audrey's youth, her lack of prior criminal history, the potential for rehabilitation. When Judge Harper asked if the defendant wished to address the court, Audrey stood. Her voice was small but controlled. Your Honor, I loved my grandfather. I spent years caring for him. The night he passed away, I gave him medication, as I always did. I didn't know he'd already taken it. It was a mistake. A horrible, tragic mistake. She glanced at Owen briefly. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry you felt you had to do this. I wish you had believed in me. I ask for mercy, not because I deserve it, but because I want a chance to prove I'm better than my worst mistakes. Monica Walsh's sentencing came first. Judge Harper reviewed the cooperation Monica had provided and the crimes she had facilitated. The sentence, 12 years in state prison, with eligibility for parole, after 8 years, restitution of $89,000. Judge Harper turned her full attention to Audrey. Audrey Barrett, you have been convicted of 7 felony counts, including 2 counts of intentionally causing the deaths of Frederick Barrett and Beatrice Sullivan. The evidence showed calculation planning and ruthless disregard for human life in pursuit of financial gain. Harper's voice was steady. You researched methods. You forged documents. You stole $547,000 from 2 elderly people who trusted you. And when your grandfather threatened to cut off your access to his money, you acted. The sentences came one after another. 5 years for elder financial abuse. 3 years for fraud concurrent. 3 years for identity theft concurrent. 2 years for forgery concurrent. 4 years for conspiracy concurrent. 25 years to life for causing Frederick's death. 25 years to life for causing Beatrice's death. Counts 6 and 7 will be served consecutively. Total sentence 50 years to life. Eligible for parole after 40 years. Audrey would be 72 before she could even apply for parole. You are also ordered to pay restitution of $547,000 to the victims' estates, plus forfeiture of $550,000 from the fraudulent insurance policy. Audrey's face drained of all color. As she passed Owen's row, she stopped and looked at him. Their eyes met and held for what felt like an eternity. Owen saw everything in that look: rage, betrayal, loss, terror, and buried beneath it all a flicker of the little girl he used to know. Then it was gone. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded Owen. Mr. Barrett, your daughter received 50 years to life. How do you feel? His answer was simple. I feel like my father can rest now. That's all. That evening, Owen drove to Riverside Cemetery, standing before Frederick's headstone. It's done, Dad. She's gone. Justice was served. I did what you asked. I hope you're proud. I hope this was worth it. He placed the creel on the grave marker and turned to walk back to his car. Behind him, snow began to fall, covering everything, the grave, the creel, his footprints, in a layer of white that felt like absolution. 3 days later, a letter arrived from Riverside Women's Correctional Facility. Owen almost threw it away unopened, but something made him slice through the seal. That I have 50 years to think about what I did. You have the rest of your life to think about what you did. I wonder which of us will have more regrets. They say I took Grandpa's life for money. You took mine for justice. I won't write again. There's nothing left to say. But I want you to know I didn't plan it the way they claimed. It was desperation, panic, and bad decisions piling up until I couldn't stop. Does that make it better? No. Does it make me less guilty? The jury said no. But does it make me more human? I think so. And someday maybe you'll remember I was human too. Not a monster. Just someone who made terrible mistakes. Owen read that letter 10 times, then locked it in a drawer with all of Frederick's documents. He didn't know if he would ever read it again or if it even mattered. But he kept it, because she was right about one thing: they had both made choices, and they would both live with them forever. 6 months after the sentencing, Owen stood on a dock in Harborview, Maine, a coastal town 300 miles from Riverside, far enough from courtrooms and cameras and memories that needed distance to fade. The Atlantic stretched endlessly before him, slate gray and cold. In his hands was a bronze plaque, Frederick and Helen Barrett Fund for Financial Literacy and Elder Protection. Established 2025. Because what's right matters even when the cost is everything. The morning routine had become familiar since leaving Riverside. Coffee brewed in a studio apartment overlooking the harbor, silence broken only by gulls overhead. Owen had sold his father's house, settled the estate, and kept what he needed to live modestly. $500,000 went to establish the fund exactly as Frederick's will had specified. Harborview's population was 3,200 people. Nobody here knew who he was. He was just Owen, the guy who ran the Elder Assistance Office on Main Street. The anonymity was exactly what he needed to breathe again. The office occupied a former bookstore with 2 part-time staff members and photographs on the walls, Frederick holding a string of trout, Beatrice at a community center. They helped elderly residents understand financial documents, identify warning signs of fraud, and connect with legal assistance when family members seemed questionable. The mission statement hung framed beside the door, protecting those who built our communities, honoring Frederick Barrett and Beatrice Sullivan. The fund had assisted 47 elderly individuals over 5 months. They had identified 12 suspected cases of financial abuse, prevented an estimated $340,000 in losses. It wasn't enough. Thousands of elderly people were still being exploited. But it was a start. The phone rang late one evening. Carl Winters, his voice warm and familiar. "Owen, how's Maine treating you?" Quiet, cold, anonymous. Exactly what I needed. They talked about Riverside, about mutual friends. Carl mentioned that Monica had been denied early parole. When he asked about Audrey, Owen said simply, "She sent a letter after sentencing. I read it, then locked it away. No plans to respond." Carl's voice softened. "Frederick's been gone over a year now. You've built something good in his name. Maybe it's time to forgive yourself." For what? For choosing what was right. For being human. The next morning brought Iris Sullivan, having driven from Riverside overnight. "I came to see what you've built. And to thank you." Owen gave her a tour. Iris stopped before Beatrice's photograph, her hand touching the frame. She would have loved this. They sat with coffee, and Iris shared something unexpected. "After the trial, I struggled. I started volunteering with an elder protection group in Riverside. I teach classes about recognizing financial abuse. Last month, a woman approached me after class. She said I'd saved her from her grandson's scheme. Said B's story gave her courage to say no." Iris's eyes glistened. Beatrice's passing wasn't meaningless. It warned others. It changed laws. Your father's passing wasn't meaningless either. This funded the trial, the public attention. It's shining light on an issue people usually ignore. That's legacy, Owen. Not money, not inheritance. The lives you touch after they're gone. Her words stayed with him. That evening, Owen finally confronted something he'd been avoiding. He pulled out the box containing Frederick's creel, his journals, his letters. Hidden in the leather lining was a small envelope he'd somehow missed. Inside a piece of paper dated April the 12th, 2024, one day before Frederick passed away. The letter began, "Owen, my son, if you're reading this, I'm gone and you've done what I knew you would do. You've chosen what's right. I'm writing this a few hours before meeting Raymond Cooper tomorrow, but I may not make it to that appointment. Audrey knows about it, and I think she'll act." Owen's hands shook as he continued reading. "I want you to know I'm not afraid. I'm 83. I've lived a full life. If tomorrow is my last day, I'm at peace. But here's what's important. You might spend years wondering if you could have saved me. You couldn't. This isn't your fault. Audrey made her choices long before you realized something was wrong." The letter addressed every question that had haunted him. You might question whether sending her to prison was the right choice. It was. Because justice isn't revenge. It's affirmation this person mattered. Their life had value. What happened to them was wrong. You might wonder if the money was worth losing your daughter. It's not about money. It's about what's right. And what's right is the only thing that lasts forever. The final paragraph read, 20 years from now, you'll be as old as I am now. I hope you find love, purpose, peace. I hope this fund helps people. I hope you forgive yourself for the choice you had to make. And I hope you know I'm proud of you. I love you. I will always love you. Choose what's right, son, even when the cost is everything. Because in the end, what's right is all we leave behind." Owen cried for the first time since the verdict. He read the letter 3 more times, letting Frederick's final message settle into the hollow places inside him. Then he placed it on his desk beside his father's photograph. "I understand now, Dad. Finally, I understand." Morning came with clarity. Owen mounted the bronze plaque beside the fund office entrance, Frederick and Helen Barrett Fund. Because what's right matters. Last week, he received an email from a woman in California whose mother had been targeted by a caregiver. She wrote, "Thanks to your fund's resources, we stopped it. My mother is safe now. Thank you." 4 words. My mother is safe. That's why he did this. That's why he'd do it again. Frederick's legacy isn't the money he left behind. It's the lives saved because of his courage. And maybe Owen's legacy won't be the daughter he lost. It will be the people he helped save. That has to be enough. Because it's all he has. And it's all that matters. When I reflect on everything that unfolded, I realize this story isn't just about what Audrey did or what I lost. It's about choices we make when caught between love and what's right. If you see warning signs in your own family, financial irregularities, sudden isolation of elderly relatives, unexplained changes in wills, don't be like me. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't convince yourself that family would never do such things. Family betrayal cuts deepest precisely because we never see it coming. My father used to say that God gives us 2 gifts, discernment, to see clearly, and courage to act on what we see. I failed to use the first gift for too long, blinded by assumption. When I finally found courage to act, the cost was everything. But here's what I've learned. God doesn't promise us easy choices. He promises us strength to make the hard ones. And sometimes the hardest choice is admitting that the person you love has become someone you don't recognize. These grandpa stories we hear about elderly people losing their savings, their dignity, their final years of peace, they're not just statistics. They're Frederick. They're Beatrice. They're someone's father, someone's grandmother. When we ignore the signs of family betrayal, we become complicit in their suffering. I ignored those signs for months, and my father paid with his life. Don't make my mistake. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Seek help. Ask questions. Protect those who can no longer protect themselves. God placed us here not just to love our families, but to stand up for what's right, even when our families are the ones doing wrong. That's the lesson Frederick tried to teach me. That's what I hope you take away from Grandpa stories like this one, that protecting the elderly isn't optional. It's our moral obligation. Every one of these Grandpa stories carries a warning we must heed before it's too late. If this story resonated with you, please leave a comment below sharing your thoughts or experiences with elder abuse. Have you witnessed family betrayal in your community? What warning signs did you notice? Your comment might save someone's life. Hit that subscribe button to hear more stories that matter, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for staying until the end of this difficult but necessary story. I want to be transparent. Some upcoming stories contain fictionalized elements created for educational purposes about elder protection. If you prefer different content, feel free to explore other videos. But if you believe these lessons matter, please stay. Because every story we share, every conversation we start, might be the one that prevents the next tragedy.